on the assessment survey that I administered prior to visiting here, and so I'm really thankful for that, and I'm really excited to be involved in the project. We already heard from John and Peter about the approach to outcomes assessment that is led by intended uses as a guiding principle, and how that approach has a transformational potential for foreign language programs. In my short talk today, I would like to highlight two observations from the outcomes assessment literature and also assessment practices thus far in the U.S. Higher education, and also outline the research agenda that we are going to undertake through the outcomes assessment project over here at University of Notre Dame. So I have a short handout with our little figure on the side. First, I would like to talk about the observations that I generally see, the patterns that I see in the outcomes assessment literature. And that is that since 1970s, outcomes assessment has been implemented in most of the institutions, and due to the accreditation focus on outcomes assessment as a way to effectively change the student teaching and student learning. And then, so the thing is that we see an enormous literature in doing of assessment. However, we still don't really observe that culture of assessment use and learning is not really ingrained in academic programs. And that's the patterns that we see over and over. So if we want to really see assessment to be part and parcel of organizational structure and regular functioning, in order to sustain learning about and from assessment, then we need to ask a question: how do we build useful assessment systems in our program? And how do we create opportunities for programs to value assessment? Another thing about assessment is that what we advocate is assessment is about change and learning. Changes in terms of our thinking, beliefs, behavior, about instruction and learning, and also changes in terms of perceptions about the value of the program. Right? If we are to see those changes, then if we want to see those changes, we need to ask, how do we ensure that assessment process and findings result in learning and change? So there are some insights from theories like evaluation, program evaluation theories and organizational change theories, talking about those changes, how to make changes in the organization through assessment as well as evaluation. And those are like theories such as like utilization-focused evaluation models and organizational learning. And we need to probably learn from those theories as well. Another observations or patterns that we always see is that recently is the huge amount of publication on outcomes assessment tactics or strategies, designs, tools, and so many exemplary cases. However, these are based on really first-person experiential accounts. Not that those are less of a value, but those are important. However, what we need to do is to research on assessment and to improve our understanding and about what works, what doesn't work, how it works. So questions such as like what factors lead assessment to be useful, meaningful, feasible, and sustainable, and answers to those questions are really missing at this point. Another thing is that organizational and student learning differ from each other and will look different from one discipline to another. And assessment should really reflect the disciplinary values and ways to go about it. And so I would like to raise a question of what assessment-related changes in organizational and student learning look like in the humanities. And those are the type of questions that we really need to empirically study in order to really advance the way we go about outcomes assessment. So what I have shown here is that the type of questions that we can raise about researching assessment, and we need to really build a scholarship, as John advocated, of outcomes assessment. And what I mean by scholarship of assessment is that one is that we need to really systematically investigate what works, what doesn't work, and what factors really impact sustainable, educative, systematic outcomes assessment. In order to really advance the way we do outcomes assessment locally and also across the discipline. Second is that we need a departmental and disciplinary recognition and avocation of assessment as an educative and scholarly work, as Peter suggested. And so in order to build the scholarship of outcomes assessment, what we are going to engage in is that we are going to engage in inter-institutional project and between Notre Dame and Georgetown as implementing utilization-focused outcomes assessment, and then really study how are things working, what kind of factors actually impact the way we think about assessment, how we operationalize assessment in local, according to local situations. So what we try to accomplish through these upcoming 2 years is that we are trying to produce multiple exemplary cases implementing utilization-focused outcomes assessment, and at the same time, what University of Hawaii team are going to be engaged in is the meta-evaluation of multiple case studies, looking across departments, what kind of factors are there that would really facilitate learning about and from outcomes assessment. So the more specific research questions that we are trying to answer are listed on your handout. 3 questions. I'm not going to go into it because I already covered those questions. And then by answering those questions and finding out empirically about what works and what not, we are going to create like a knowledge base, empirical knowledge base for how to go about outcomes assessment for the humanities, so modeling, as well as what we aim to do is to together combine the exemplary cases as well as empirical base for how to go about outcomes assessment and disseminate those to the humanities in the form of a book. And so as a product, I hope that we can produce a book something like this with case studies and knowledge base of outcomes assessment through the National Foreign Language Resource Center. And I think this will be a great value to the humanities. Also, what we aim to do is to really sustain this effort in the long term. And so we want to put in some grant proposals so that we can really sustain the project over the course of a couple of years and to really see how outcomes assessment grow in the institution. So that's the proposal that I'm making, and on your right-hand side, you see the conceptual mapping of the research framework that will be implemented. So what you see is that I will be primarily taking a researcher role in terms of overlooking, doing meta-evaluation of the different cases. What we start to do is, what I already start to do is the context analysis of what kind of programs exist and also what kind of program features there exist in each department. And so looking at department external factors as well as department internal factors and discovering those different factors, organizational factors, assessment factors, or user factors, looking at those factors, to what extent those factors actually impact the way we implement outcomes assessment, what we learn from outcomes assessment.